Patients getting paid. What a concept. If your story's anything like mine, you had to dial back your job or leave it altogether thanks to your chronic illness. The paychecks quit coming, but the bills didn't, right? I spent years weeding through the scam job sites for flexible jobs and scam trainings for how to start an online business. I learned about paying patient advocacy gigs by overhearing someone talking about them on a bus. It's crazy the amount of time, energy, and money I spent trying to figure out how to work for myself or others in a flexible way that could accommodate doctor's appointments and hospital infusions or just not feeling well. Take advantage of my years of learning these tough lessons and get right to how to do it for yourself by signing up for my course, Patients Getting Paid, where you'll learn where to find these jobs and how to put your best foot forward in getting them or how to create your own flexible opportunities. Sign up right now for more information. Go to fumsnow.com/patients getting paid. Welcome to the FUMS Now podcast show, where you'll gain information, inspiration, and motivation for living your best life with multiple sclerosis. Find us online at fumsnow.com. I'm your host, Kathy Reagan Young. Welcome to the fourth in the series on international MS diagnosis and treatment stories, where I'm interviewing people from several different countries to hear what their experiences are like in comparison to ours here in the U.S. Today's guest is Dave Head, an accomplished writer advocating awareness for a multitude of chronic illnesses that he himself suffers from, most notably multiple sclerosis. He lives in Alberta, Canada, and his story is remarkable. Let's go meet him. So, hey, Dave, thanks so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Thanks. So let's start with what type of symptoms did you first notice and when? And in fact, if you just want to go into your diagnosis story, that's a good place to start, I think.
Sure, no problem. So I was first diagnosed, oddly enough, on January 1st, 2007.
Well, Happy New Year.
Year's Day. Yeah, Happy New Year. On New Year's Eve day is the day that I ended up in the hospital because I was trying to drive to work and I couldn't stay on the lines on the freeway.
Oh, geez.
I thought it was just nerves because, oddly enough, I had proposed to my wife that Christmas of 2006. So obviously she said yes, and everything went good on that end. I got the time away for Christmas to travel to British Columbia, where she's from and where her family lives.
Beautiful.
So I just thought I was ramped up from my nerves and I was excited. She said yes. So I just thought that's what I was feeling, these weird sensations throughout my body and my vision, most importantly. But driving to work on New Year's Eve day, I had double vision. I was dizzy. I so far as shoulder checking, I don't even know how I made it home back to our apartment, but I did.
Wow.
I called her at her work. Obviously, she came to the apartment, and we both knew, okay, this is not normal. So off to the hospital we went. Before that, all I can remember is standing. I work in retail and was at the time as a manager for a large box store up here. I just felt like my foot I just had numbness and tingling in my foot. I just thought it had fallen asleep and I was trying to shake it loose at the store. We did take the Greyhound bus to British Columbia because of my work schedule and that for the drive and the time of year through the mountain passes. And all I remember is coming back, I was hugging the seat in front of me because, you're tired. So you just kind of grasp what's around you to get comfortable. And I thought I had rug burn on my face, but it didn't go away after we got back 3 or 4 days later. And that was still present in the hospital on New Year's Eve day. So taking my balance, my coordination, my sensory things into context, the emergency room doctor ran a few tests. They obviously did blood work. They did a CT scan. When I got the results of the CT scan, it showed I had either mini strokes or a chance there's MS. So they followed that up with an MRI, and it was after midnight on New Year's Eve that I got the results of the MRI just from the emergency room doctor, saying a neurologist would see me the following day. And obviously the next day I did see the neurologist, and he ruled out the chance that it was mini strokes, and diagnosed me with CIS, which is clinically isolated syndrome. So he was fairly confident between the MRI as well as my symptoms that it was multiple sclerosis, but they tracked for 3 months before they gave the concrete diagnosis to begin treatment, just to see if I have any following or any more symptoms or relapse. In that time, it did take about 8 weeks for my optic neuritis, double vision to dissipate through steroid use and such. But I also continued to have balance problems, weakness problems. I had numbness in my legs, my feet. I haven't felt my feet probably since diagnosis. So after the 3 months, he was fairly certain, did a repeat MRI. It showed enhancing lesions from the first scan 3 months previous. So that's when I officially received the diagnosis of MS.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by a lot of things. First, let me ask you this, if you can remember, when they suggested that this was either mini strokes or MS, do you remember wishing it was one or the other?
Honestly, I wished for neither.
Well, sure.
I know.
That wasn't the choice you
honestly, were given. There was so much going on. My dad lives in the U.S. He was up here for the holidays, visiting myself and my sisters. He knew that I was proposing to my wife at the time. So there was a lot of whirlwind going on, a lot of very concerned people, obviously. I didn't know what to think at the time.
Sure.
Neither did my new fiancée. I mean, the first thing that came to mind was MS. I don't know much at all about MS. I don't have a family history of MS on either side of my mother or my father. So far as mini strokes, I mean, that was scary to hear that, no doubt. But at the time, I don't think it would have mattered either way. Both were very intimidating to me.
Not a good choice.
No.
One. Right. I'm so interested that neurologist suggested it was CIS immediately, because I have no idea. I have no medical background, but my understanding was that CIS was more of a retro diagnosis, and because it's over time, if you're not relapsing remitting, if it was just sort of the one. But I guess, is that not true? Did I misunderstand?
As far as I know, the way he explained it to me at the time is, though he was fairly certain that it was MS, given there is no family history, that I didn't have any symptoms before a couple of weeks before the optic neuritis set in, that brought me to the hospital. He just wanted to be sure, especially before beginning treatments and things of that nature. Just because there was nothing previous to my first symptoms.
Gotcha. Now, have you been sort of reclassified?
I was reclassified in March 2007, the 3 months after going to the hospital. I was officially diagnosed with relapsing remitting.
Got it. Okay. Oh, yippee. Something to celebrate. Great. Okay, well, you were pretty clear on, I think, the testing. Well, did you have to have a lumbar puncture?
No, I did not.
Oh, yippee. Congratulations, because let me just tell you about that fun.
Oh, well, I know.
That was horrible. But that was a really fast diagnosis for those days.
Yes.
I mean, really fast, because that's about the time I was diagnosed too. And I think that was right about the time when things started to speed up a bit in terms of diagnosis. But prior to that, I've talked to so many people who it literally took years, which is mind-bending.
And it's lucky where I live here in Calgary, Alberta, because we are a hub for MS research and MS facilities through the Foothills Hospital in Calgary.
Nice.
So people from Vancouver, from Saskatchewan, from all over British Columbia, Manitoba, even from Seattle and some of the northwestern states come to Calgary because we are a research destination and a research hub. So there is a lot of talent up here from around the world.
Excellent.
So that was in my benefit, no doubt.
Yeah. And I would suspect that's because, lucky you all, you are number 2 for prevalence of MS in the world.
Yeah.
Yippee.
And number 1 per capita in the world.
Oh, super. Well, you guys are overachievers.
Oh, I
know. So how, if you don't mind, how were you told? I mean, was it over the phone? Was it in person?
It was in person. Okay. So I was booked in to see my neurologist for the follow-up from the MRI in March. Mm-hmm. So the 3 months after diagnosis of CIS. And obviously my fiancée, she did say yes, by the way, for anybody wondering in the background. Did she say yes? Did she stay with him? Yes, we've been married. We have 2 children and a dog. So we're very happy.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. It's actually our 11th year anniversary this week. So.
Oh, nice. Well, cheers to you.
Yes, thank you. So we went to the hospital. And there was a nurse in the room. There was the neurologist in the room. And again, very experienced neurologist, older gentleman. And he said, given the MRIs that I've seen from a couple of weeks ago, and again, I had new symptoms over the course of that 3 months. Mm-hmm. So he said, I'm fairly confident that you do have relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis. And then we began to speak to treatment options and if I needed any resource so far as psychology, somebody to talk to, counseling. Very supportive towards my fiance.
Wow.
If she needed anything, the nurse was there. They had information available and they're very, very supportive.
Holy cow, that sounds lovely. That is so, thoughtful. I mean,
yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like they thought all through.
I know between the 2 of us, we know very many people in the MS community where they do not receive diagnosis in that same form. So
no, not at all.
Very, very, very lucky. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love to hear a good story like that where people are well cared for. So how did you make the decision about, you said that you started talking about treatment. So did y'all just talk it through? Did they give you a bunch of information to read and say, come on back and tell me what you want to take? Or how did you decide on what you started taking?
Well, I mean, it was still 2007.
Right.
So, I mean, there
wasn't a lot.
Social media wasn't out there yet. So I did some research online, that sort of thing. But he started with the ABCs. So Avonex, Betaseron, Capaxone, and then tied in Rebif. Mm-hmm. He said, given my medical history and given kind of the stage he could see my MS at, he wanted to go more assertive with Rebif. Was his recommendation, but he sent us home with everything on those 4 drugs. I'm one that if my doctor says to recommend something, I'll look at that first, which I did.
Smart.
And I began Rebif shortly thereafter in April 2007.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. What a concept. My doctor just handed me some big, thick books and said, go read this and come on back and let me know what you want to do. Yeah. My degree's in English. So what? Yeah.
And it wasn't so much him. Sharon, who I've known, she's one of the MS nurses in the MS clinic that I go to. We have a very good relationship ever since that day. And she's the one that sat down more than the actual neurologist and went through, this is how the drugs work and so on and so forth, and deep tissue injectable, soft tissue injectable, and all that. So that was nice to have that one-on-one. Yeah.
Shout out to MS nurses everywhere because they really make the difference. I had an awesome MS nurse that I miss so much. Kathy Boland, shout out to you, and I miss you terribly. She was phenomenal. Well, that's great. Oh my gosh, this is a great story. For bad news, it's a great story. Yes. So, okay, you started out with Rebif. How long were you on that, or are you still on that?
I was on that for 4 years. Okay. and my body began to build up antibodies to it. I began to have worsening symptoms. Tremors started up in my hands. The optic neuritis had come back. There was just a lot of things going on. So through MRI and through scanning my neck, I, oddly enough, haven't done my full spine yet.
Wow.
But that'll probably come this year, just given circumstance. So given my body had built up antibodies to it, he wanted to be more assertive and wanted to go with Tysabri.
Gotcha.
And up here in Canada, unfortunately, we'll discuss it a little bit further later, Health Canada, which is the FDA of Canada, I don't want to say they're slow, but I think they're a little bit too rigorous at times in pushing through the approvals for certain therapies, not just in MS, but in lupus, in cancer, and in a wide variety of chronic illness. So it was relatively new at that time. I did the test for the JC virus. All that came back positive. I was good to go. There was no roadblocks to it. The only thing, obviously, was how do I pay for it? So with the Capaxone, with the Rebif, rather, through my employer health benefits, it was 100% covered. Which I was very lucky. Yeah. But that was about, if I remember correctly, about $28,000 a year Canadian. Whereas with the Tysabri, I believe, and again, I lost the paperwork, I couldn't find it, it was around $80,000 a year at the time for Tysabri. Right. So that was my biggest worry is, am I going to be able to afford it? So,
and it's so new. So your insurance probably wasn't covering it. Correct?
They did. It took a number of weeks. And then I remember I was driving on the highway within the city and I got a phone call. And it was the the insurance company calling to say that going through everything, it was approved. And the coverage was 100%, which was unbelievable. That is. At the time, I was a market director, so I was more of an executive role within my company. So my employer benefits were a little bit higher than normal, which was in my benefit. But thank goodness is right. So I began Tysabri.
Well, this is, I have so many different directions to go with my questions.
I know.
First of all, I'm so surprised. I'm trying to rein it in because I'm Chatty Cathy and I am also the question queen, but I'll try and respect your time. This is a little bit mind-blowing to me because, Canada is always talked about in terms of having socialized medicine. And in my head, that does not equate to employer-provided benefits.
Yeah.
So how the heck does that work? Or is that in addition to benefits provided by the country?
So for the benefits for the country, so far as diagnostics, seeing your physicians, all that is covered through the federal. Okay. When it comes to the actual drugs and drug plans, that is either through government agencies as well as through employer benefits. I'm currently not employed. I'm on CPP disability, which is Canadian Pension Plan disability for the rest of, or until 65. Then it kicks over to the next level of Canada Pension because I'm unable to work at this point. And but back in those days with the treatment and that, it was would be covered through either the drug company would have to front the bill for it, which is difficult to do at times, especially for that amount of money, right? Or through private employer benefits.
Gotcha. So if you hadn't been working at that time, you would not have been able to get this Tysabri?
I would have had to go through either get my own private insurance and then pay hefty premiums on it. Right now, my medicine, my MS therapy is not covered in Canada right now, which again I'll talk to in a little bit as well.
Yeah.
But through my wife's employer, obviously myself and our children are under her plan. So far as my other medications, they're all covered under her benefits.
Okay, gotcha. All right. And you said you got your JCV test and all your other tests, and you said that was all positive, so you were good to go. I assume you don't mean that you were positive for the JCV.
Yeah, sorry. No, I was negative.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify, because I was like, what? That's different in Canada.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So, so you went from Rebif to Tysabri. Are you still on Tysabri, or have you?
This is where things get very interesting.
Okay.
So, as many know, Tysabri is given by monthly infusion. I had 11 infusions. I was getting prepared for a large meeting that I had to co-facilitate with another market leader who was not as well versed in the business as I am. So I had a lot of stress going on in my life at the time. Our first child, our daughter was just born a couple months previous to it. And I ended up having a grand mal seizure in my sleep.
Jeez. My
wife had gotten up to go and nurse our daughter. She came back to the bedroom. I was spread out in the bed. I had wet the bed. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know anything that was going on. We're very lucky. My mother lives in Calgary. So she called my mom at like 3 a.m. And again, my memory is obviously very in and out. All I remember is being fuzzy, trying to wash myself up and get dressed. Then all of a sudden my mother was in our bedroom. I didn't know what was going on. My wife didn't know what was going on. Do we call an ambulance? What do we do? Yeah. So she ended up driving me in to the hospital, where they determined that I did have seizure activity and one known grand mal. The only thing leading up to it is that I have these deja vu moments where I would have the feeling of deja vu.
Yeah.
But I would get very dizzy, lightheaded, but I never said anything. I remember watching Big Brother. And yes, we love Big Brother up here in Canada. Not Big Brother Canada, that sucks.
Oh, I didn't even know that existed.
Big Brother on CBS.
The real deal.
Real deal. And I just remember there was a surfboard. They were doing Power Veto or something like that. They had to stay on a surfboard that was coming in and out of a wall, and it was raining on them, trying to knock them off. And I just remember I just had that feeling of deja vu, and I put my head back, and I just started seeing stars, and I thought I was going to pass out.
Oh, boy.
And it lasted a few minutes, and then my wife started talking, and I still didn't say anything to her of what was going on. And I just kind of came back. But I just remember looking back, saying to myself, I didn't know how to speak. I didn't know how to talk to her. I could speak in my mind, but I couldn't speak out.
Wow.
But again,
scary.
I just thought it was stress from this meeting. You know, there was a change in our life with our daughter. I just thought all those things compounding, it was just kind of a normal reaction, which obviously it wasn't.
MSers are really good at rationalizing weird shit. Let's be honest.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow, that was some heavy-duty rationalization. Congratulations. Okay, grand mal, you go to the hospital. They figure out your activity.
I was admitted to the hospital. They ran all the tests. My first concern was PML, obviously. Yeah. They did MRIs and CAT scans and everything they could diagnostically. They couldn't confirm that it was PML. And this is where things get a little bit interesting a few years later when I was in the hospital for other things, where a literal team of neurologists came through.
That's never good.
And they had kind of conflicting opinions on whether it was PML causing this, because what else would have caused this? So there's just, even to this day, my neurologist isn't convinced that it was PML. He just thinks it was a blip in the radar. His words, not mine.
Quite the blip.
So obviously I'm no longer on Tysabri.
Gotcha.
I went dry for about 2 months, if I remember correctly, maybe 3 months before starting a new treatment.
Yeah, because you have to do that, right? Isn't there sort of a washout period?
Washout period, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I did start Copaxone.
And how did you feel during that washout period? I mean, I hear from people. I, in fact, just quit cold turkey beta-cerone after 5 years, and I was off it for 4 years, and I felt fantastic right up until I didn't, and I had a big fat relapse. But did you feel any different during that time, or were you nervous not being on anything?
I was underlying nervous, I guess would be the best way to put it. I wasn't, in my mind freaking out. I'm not on anything. What's going to happen because I'm not taking anything?
Yeah.
I did have that relief of, okay, I don't need to worry about injections. I don't need to worry about infusions. I had so many other things on my mind. I was on new medication for seizures, which I'll be on for the rest of my life. And, there's, I was seeing psychologists and psychiatrists and all that because it's a lot to take in.
That's a lot to take in.
So, so many lifestyle changes. My vision hasn't been the same since the seizure activities. That's where my speech kind of began to change, and my tremors definitely worsened beginning at after the seizure activity. So there was a lot of change overall. So I was a little bit distracted, but I've always been of the mindset of, I know I have a disease. I know I need to do something to prevent progression of this disease, no matter how minor. If it's got a 33% efficacy rate or a 45% efficacy rate, I still need that chance versus zero chance. And I know there's a dispute within the community and that's fine. It's very subjective, and I would never be one to say, oh, you need to take this, oh, you need to take that. It's everybody's personal opinion of how they want to treat themselves. So for me, I wanted to be on something. Copaxone was safe because I had built up antibodies to Rebif. There wasn't other treatments available yet in Canada. So that's, again, why I went to the Copaxone.
On that. So back to shots again.
Yeah.
Yippee! So, okay, you alluded to or we talked briefly about this, but, and I'm still a little bit confused, I'll be honest with you, but so doctor's visits, tests, that sort of thing, that is taken care of by your federal health system, but the medications, that's something that you're responsible for unless you are disabled. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So you can go and purchase your own health care. So such through Manulife or different companies that are out there. Since I'm not working any longer, I did apply for AISH, which is, I wrote it down here. Where is it? Sorry.
That's okay. AISH.
AISH.
I could make something up.
Yeah, no, it's assured income for the severely handicapped.
Wow. Okay.
So with AISH, because I'm already on CPP, which to be approved for CPP disability is incredibly rigorous because that's the federal portion of it.
Gotcha.
So I get paid monthly by the government only because I did contribute into Canada pension plan, to a Canadian pension plan through my employer while I was working full time for 18 years. So you need to have paid into the account in order to receive the benefit. But they obviously don't just let anybody do that. So my wife is an amazing person, and she has binders full of all my medical information, test results, dates, everything, who I saw, what doctor I saw, what facility we were seeing. So she filled out the form. We took it to a social worker through my family doctor's office. She reviewed it, tweaked it a little bit. The doctor signed off on it. And it was sent in to the government, and it came back a few months later, denied.
Oh, geez.
So we sent it back, tweaked a few more things. It was approved. everything was good. We were happy. Then we were told, you're entitled to back pay up to 12 months.
Oh.
So if you fill in this form, you can send it in and you'll get back pay. We sent in that form and my entire file was canceled.
Oh, for shit's sake. What?
Fun.
What in the world?
That's what we said, just in not such nice words.
Yeah, right.
So there are private companies that take 20 to 30% of whatever benefit you receive back once it's approved, and it's what they do.
Yeah, right.
They manage the file.
Yep, we've got those here too. Yep.
Yeah. So we made the decision to go to that since we had done all we could.
Right.
And really, the company we went with was 20%. So we're like, you know what? 20% is 20%, but at least it's done for life.
Right. You got 80% of something rather than 100% of nothing.
And then I'll get the 12-month or 12-year back pay, sorry. 10-year back pay, sorry. 10-year.
Yeah.
So handed everything over to this company, and it took over a year for them to properly get everything put through. It was just last year that everything came back. I got the retro pay, but because it was approved and then denied, they kind of scammed us and said, well, we're only going to pay you 10 months because of when you first sent it in. So, okay, whatever.
Wow.
So I got 8 years instead of 10 years retro pay. But again, 8 years is better than nothing.
Yeah.
And now I do receive CPP, Canadian Pension Plan, disability payments every month until 65. And then it will transition into another program due to age.
And are those two programs that you just mentioned, I'm confident you don't get rich like that.
No,
but are they at a healthy enough stipend to maintain a comfortable life?
A comfortable life. Well, I would say yes. Comfortable to the degree if I was living by myself without dependents.
Right.
I would still need a spouse to be working full time to live a comfortable life. Housing is very expensive around the world, not just in Canada and the United States, but it's expensive to live, especially in a large city such as Calgary. So we did lose our house that we owned through this entire process. Life changed. So decisions had to be made. So we've been renting houses for a number of years now. But again, that's, we're still in a house. Between CPP, disability, I also get a steady income from AISH, which is provincial for Alberta, not federal. So I do get a steady income from them, dependent on household income. So it'll be interesting in the next coming weeks. My wife just received a promotion at her work, and obviously receiving a healthy compensation increase as well. So we just send that into AISH, and they'll determine what my monthly payments will be. What it does not affect is my medical benefits through AISH. So in 2003, I had ulcerative colitis, and I had half of my colon removed, leaving me with an ileostomy bag.
Gracious.
So I need ostomy supplies. So before, I would have to get my supplies through the pharmacy, send it in through to the employer health benefits, and then wait for the money to come back.
Right. Like a repay, right?
Like a repay, yeah. But now that I'm on AISH, they pay 100% of my supplies.
Oh, that's good.
And I don't have to do anything. I just call the pharmacy. This is what I need. They put it together and send it out to me.
And they bill AISH. Gotcha. So just to clarify, I was just confused on one part. So
I know.
You said, no. You're doing a fantastic job of trying to keep my goofy head straight. But I just wanted to ask you about the AISH. When you said now your wife has gotten this promotion, and congratulations to her, by the way.
Thank you.
And you have to send that in. Does that mean that AISH will then decrease what they will pay you because now your wife's salary's going up, or?
So the monetary value that I get paid each month from AISH is dependent on total home income.
Okay.
Including like my spouse, obviously. But the good thing is that it has nothing to do with federal income. They don't look at the CPP disability payments as income because that's a separate entity.
Gotcha.
There's many people on AISH. And again, working retail over the years, we had many people with, different illnesses, different diseases that affect motor skills and such, where they can still work, 4 or 6 hours, a couple days a week, collecting carts or just talking to people, answering phone calls, things of that nature.
Yeah.
They are on AISH, but they restrict how much money they can create as an income, so it doesn't affect their monetary payments through AISH.
Gotcha. Yep. This is all sounding very familiar. We have SSDI here, so that's same idea, and we have to hire people to, go and talk to them too after they die.
And these folks that worked in stores with me over the years, they had case workers through AISH. I've got a caseworker, but since I'm not working, she doesn't need to go and talk to employers and things of that nature. So.
Right. So, and you mentioned, you're, and I can't remember which program this is, but you receive, money from them based on the fact that you were working and paying into it for 18 years. What about people who haven't been working?
And that's where things kind of get skewed in my mind as well, because honestly, I'm not sure. Exactly.
I'm not asking you to explain, the whole healthcare system in Canada. I just didn't, that's, I can understand why that would be a little confusing. It is to me too.
I know that we've got friends, and they had a baby with a very rare disease where he can't walk properly. They had to put elevators in the house, things like that, and he will never be able to work in his lifetime. But as his parent, they receive grants from the Canadian government as caregivers to this child. So they receive monetary. They have to will need to put in an elevator as he gets older into their home. So they were our neighbors when my wife and I first bought a townhouse together many years ago. And we obviously kept in touch over the years. And when they moved out of their townhouse, they bought a house, were able to purpose build it for when their child grows older. So when it was built, they put an elevator shaft in so that it's ready to go when they do need that. All the doorways were pre-built wide to enable wheelchairs and the specialty equipment that he needs in his bedroom. So floors were reinforced, everything was dropped down. So it's easier as he gets older, because right now I believe he's 70 years old. So I mean, it's going to be lifelong. So they received a lot of grants through Alberta, through Canada, as well as even some private donorships through his employer, kind of fundraising, GoFundMe type stuff. So I mean, there are programs available in unique circumstances such as that.
Good. Okay, so are you offered ancillary treatments there? And by that I mean like massage therapy, nutritional counseling, cryotherapy, that sort of thing. Is that part of and I'm picturing this wonderful MS center that you have described, and I'm going to guess that they have all kinds of stuff there for you. Is that
That's very correct. And when I've spoken to this about, or to many people, not just outside of Canada, but even within Canada, through the Calgary MS Society, or through the Calgary MS Clinic, through the hospital, they have a program called Optimus. And no, it's not a transformer. It is called Outpatient Treatment in Multiple Sclerosis, abbreviated to Optimus. So they have physical therapy, occupational therapy, social work, psychiatry. Everything is under that umbrella. They do bring people in from all over Western Canada into this program. So I'm enrolled in it right now, due to relapse-ish that I had probably about 6-7 weeks ago now. So when I got the letter in the mail, they were still booking 2 months out just to get in to see them. But I've been through them from the onset of my disease, basically, especially when I was still working full time after the seizures. Obviously, when you have seizures, you can't just jump in a car when you're feeling better.
Right.
So I had to go through physical therapy, occupational therapy. I had to do the driver assessments and everything through the Optimist program, so I could get green lighted to drive again. So when it comes to canes, I needed to use a cane, which was very difficult for me at the time because I'm a youngish man, especially 10 years ago when all of this really happened. So there was a lot to digest, but they go through things with you, and once you're in the clinic, you're wide open to everybody. So when it came to going back to work after the seizures, kind of what does that look like? What information does the employer? What do I disclose to the employer? What do I not need to disclose? What, kind of working through that process. And when it comes to doctor's notes, when it comes to return to work plans, that's all drawn up in partnership with social workers through the Optimist program.
As it should be, say. That is
as
fantastic.
It should be. So I remember one appointment in the thick of it, I went in and I saw psychiatry. We did our thing. Then I literally crossed the hallway, went down a few doors, and met with the physical therapist who sized me for a cane and kind of showed how to use it and which side I should hold it on, depending on what side my weakness is on, and kind of going through all of that. And then finish with her, and then wait a few minutes and go down and see the social worker to go through all the employment stuff. And it all happens within 3 or 4 hours in one facility.
Wow, that is fantastic.
It is. It really is.
That is fantastic. And what kind of, did you get a bill for any of those services?
None.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for everyone that I've talked to in different countries that have these wonderful programs available to them. And I so want to move. Anyway, that's fantastic. That is as it should be for everyone.
As it should be. Absolutely.
So I just want to ask you really quickly. You just said you had, I think you called it relapse-ish.
Yeah.
Was it a pseudo relapse?
It turned out to be a UTI.
Oh, yeah. So we all know about
I'd never had a known UTI, and I've heard how they can affect things. But every time, I phoned the MS clinic, I left a voicemail because they're obviously very busy. Received a phone call the next day saying what's going on. She said, "Did you see your family doctor?" Which I had at the time. She did not. My family doctor sent me for a urine sample. So the MS nurse called it into the nearest lab. So I just went into the lab. The paperwork was there. I did the urine test, and then got a phone call back from the MS nurse saying it showed that I have a UTI. And they phoned in the prescription to my pharmacist, and I started the antibiotic.
Fantastic. And all of that, I'm just pointing out, you did a great job of painting that picture where, you called and this person did that and they sent this to that, and you went and did the urinalysis and it was sort of all taken care of for you. That is such a beautiful thing. And then were you billed for any of that?
No.
Oh, I'm so happy for you, Dave. Wow, that is eye-opening. So I don't even know. I have so many questions and I don't want to, I know we're winding down on time. We've gone way over, and thank you so much for being
no worries.
Patient with me. So if you were still working, or while you were working, because you were still working when you were diagnosed, yes? You worked for a time after that.
Yes.
So sort of what is the tenor about chronic illness in Canada? Like, are you given a certain amount of time off from work to attend to things like tests and treatments and doctor's appointments without penalty? Or do you need to keep everything on the down low because they might fire you? Or, yeah, what's the vibe in Canada on that?
So I had the benefit of working for my employer at Diagnosis for a decade.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I had a very good reputation. Again, I was in more of an executive leadership
Mhm.
role. I had, I believe, 14 stores that I was responsible for at the time. So I let my bosses know. I mean, you can't really shy away from it,
Yeah.
where you can't say what happened.
Mhm.
And I'm not one that's too private.
Mhm.
So at Diagnosis, rather, I was an assistant manager, and I did receive promotions to the district manager over the course of the following years. But I never had issues with my rebiff infusions. I would book them for 4:30. So
Mhm.
they would know that, okay, I'd be out of stores, phones off, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
At 4:30, I'd be at the infusion center for a couple of hours at the beginning.
Mhm.
For the infusions. I actually had a picture. It's on a friend's cell phone where we got called for a late conference call, and back in the BlackBerry days. So I was sitting with the IV line into me in an infusion chair, and I got the nurse to take a picture of me getting an infusion, and I sent it
And
to
working.
a fellow district manager for another area, just laughing and saying, they call it conference call, and this is where I'm taking it from. And I've got,
Yeah.
this infusion line going into me and everything.
Yeah.
And he's like, you should just call in and say you can't make it. I'm like, I'm
Right.
sitting here anyway. There's nothing
No,
else to do.
right. I'm a badass FUMSer, and I got
Exactly.
this, dude.
I'm
I
not
got
gonna
it.
just sit here and stare at the ceiling and talk to the
Right.
nice nurse lady.
That's so funny. My daughter came with me, I guess that was just last year, probably, when I had an infusion, and I brought my laptop and I was working, and she's
Yep.
taking pictures like, seriously, Mom? And I go, well, what the hell else am I
What are
going
you
to
gonna
do?
do?
I'm going to sit here and think about this, and,
Exactly.
no. So we are all kind of badasses, let's be honest.
Yes.
So, okay, I appreciate you explaining that. What about, and I'm sure that that's different for different people, right? And
Absolutely.
for how long you've been there and all those kinds of things. But what, if you wouldn't mind, do you know what's kind of typical? So if you're starting a job, is it like in the States, it's typical, I guess, now that you start a job and they'll say, well, we'll give you two weeks off, I guess, a year, maybe 3 weeks. I'm not even sure.
Yes.
It's been a while since I've worked for anybody but me. What is typical in Canada?
Typical would be 2 weeks
2 weeks off.
vacation for working full time. If you're working part time, it's kind of prorated.
Yeah.
So far as disclosure though,
Yeah.
again, it's a subjective thing, just as treatment is.
Yeah.
For me, I was kind of in a situation where I was okay to disclose
Right.
with that current employer, but given that we now had 2 children, I knew I needed to make a lifestyle and an employment change because I didn't want to be a dad working on the road, because I was away 3 days a week at least, flying up to northern Alberta. I was on Vancouver Island, fly to Winnipeg, Toronto.
Wow.
I was all over, and I made the conscious decision that I want to be there and watch my children grow up, and not kind of be a fly in, fly out guy. So I started looking around. I was offered a position with a new company. And that's where I really first felt that, do I disclose? Do I not disclose?
Right.
And again, through conversations with social workers and things of that nature, there is no duty to disclose. So I didn't. Oddly enough, 3 weeks into my new job in a new store with a new company, I passed out in the store, and they had to call an ambulance because I just was very dizzy. I had really bad vertigo. I was very sweaty. They thought I was having a heart attack. They didn't know what was going on, so they called an ambulance. And I was like, I have MS. I have MS. I'm okay.
Man.
I'm okay. Just call my wife. So that's kind of
there's your disclosure.
There's my disclosure. But
you outed
honestly,
yourself.
it's a large company. I was an assistant manager in a store. I was always worried that there was going to be underlying, and it turned out 3 years later that in my mind did come to fruition. And even my wife kind of said, you know what, I think they just saw you more as a liability than that. But I don't want to say that was all due to MS.
Yeah.
I developed another condition on my legs and arms called pyoderma gangrenosum. It's a long word. Don't ask me to spell it.
Yeah, it is. Holy cow. But it doesn't sound like it's any kind of fun.
No, it's in a nutshell, ulcerative colitis, but on the surface of your skin.
Oh my gosh.
So it's incredibly rare. So that had me off work for close to a year.
Oh,
I was in the hospital for, I believe, 4 months, and then had in-home care after that for the following few months, just with dressing changes and things of that nature. So given that circumstance plus the MS, and we just always thought, something's going to come down the lines. But again, you never see it coming.
Sure.
And when it did come, it was kind of a technicality that they said, well, this is why we're terminating your employment. And, they were very proper about it, and they did pay out a 2-year severance package to me as well, just to really cover their butts.
Right.
So,
oh gosh. Wow. Well, how is that going now? How are you doing with that, with your big word that I can't pronounce?
Oh, so I still have a large scar on my right leg, and very soft, thin tissue. So it's very sensitive. It's not active. I did see a dermatologist last month, just because it's been 5 years since I saw my last dermatologist about it, and she checked it out, said there's nothing active in there, and just gave some tips and stuff, because I do have scab tissue and other bumps and stuff, and it's very sensitive and painful.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And if you really wanted to see it, you could Google image it.
That sounds scary to me. Yeah, that sounds like I need cocktails before I even go down that path. Okay. I'm just going to warn, this is like one of those warnings that they put before shows,
Disclaimer.
So before any of the listeners do that, mix up a good stiff drink.
Unless you like horror movies, then Google pyoderma gangrenosum.
Woo, but do it at your own peril.
Yeah, do it at your own peril. But because I have MS and I have already limited sensation in my legs and obviously my feet, they said that kind of boded well, but the disease goes so deep into the tissue. I was about 2 weeks away from having to have skin grafts done.
Good gracious.
Until they kind of finally found a treatment that started to fix it or help to stop it. So I was very lucky that way. But.
Yeah. That's autoimmune though too, isn't it?
Yes. So through the GI clinic, I was tokened as their autoimmune nightmare.
Yeah.
Because ulcerative colitis and ileostomy bag, pyoderma gangrenosum, multiple sclerosis. It's like, is there anything else that this guy can get?
Joke. You've got to be in some medical books somewhere for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry for all of that for you.
No, that's okay.
I so appreciate you sharing all of this information with all of us. So for, you said that you were in the hospital for, how long did you say you were in the hospital?
About 4 months.
4 months.
A little over 4 months.
Good gracious. And then you had people coming to you, I think you said, to change.
Yeah, then, because before I was hospitalized for it, my wife was just following what the doctors were saying with dressing changes. And at first they thought it was a staph infection, which obviously it wasn't. It just got worse and worse and worse. So my wife became basically my nurse.
Yeah.
But after the hospital and all of that, I had a nurse come in to do the dressing changes and to wash the wounds and all that and rewrap the wounds. So she came every other day.
Wow. And
nurse.
Did you receive any bills for your time in the hospital or for your nurse coming every other day?
No. No. The only way I would, like, through my employer benefits at the time, I could have, if I wanted to upgrade to a private room, and then I would have to pay out of pocket just at 50% cost instead of 100% cost for a private room.
Wow.
But just to have a shared room with one or three other people, there was no fees.
Gotcha. I mean, I guess you have to look at that like it's a dorm, right? Woohoo!
Exactly.
Let's have a party. Like, this isn't going to cost me anything if we decide to call this a party.
Yeah, exactly.
All mindset. So I think you alluded to this early on, but what's the protocol for relapses there, for MS relapses? Did you say steroid infusions?
So they're starting to use steroids less and less. Last year, when I had a true relapse and I went and saw my neurologist, I'm not one that's too confident in it. Like, I get that they're there to help to lessen the relapse, but since my first experience with optic neuritis, it still took 7 weeks, even though I was on 2,500 milligrams of prednisone every other day. It still lasted that long. So does it work? Does it not work? The risk benefit I talked through with my neurologist. I did the steroid treatment twice since diagnosis. Whether it really lessened the relapse timeline or not, I'm not sure of.
Right. So, and how would anybody ever know? Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
gotcha.
That's typically the course that they take.
Gotcha.
But now they're starting to lessen it because the evidence doesn't really support, given what steroids in high dose such as that do to the body.
Sure. Makes sense. So this has nothing to do with anything, but I've been asking everybody this because I'm interested. Is marijuana legal in your country and used for MS?
It is legal everywhere in Canada now.
Nice.
I haven't seen my neurologist since legalization. My family doctor, she won't write a script or a prescription for medical marijuana, just because it's so new up here that they're all in the medical field trying to figure it out.
Right.
Read between the lines conversation with my neurologist before legalization. He knows many people within the MS clinic and patients that he sees that use it religiously and see great benefit from it.
That's what I'm hearing.
I have used CBD oils without THC, so it doesn't have, the chemicals that get you high.
Yep.
While on CBD, I saw great benefit. I was sleeping very good at night. The problem is because the cannabis industry is run by the government, there are shortages. So it's difficult to find stuff.
Gotcha.
There are stores that have popped up everywhere. 420 stores is a chain that, no, they're called 420, and that's their name. And there's other names I can't recall offhand. But it's been on the news every so often that they're still experiencing shortages and people are still going to the black market because they can find it easier there than going to a store. And
sure.
I mean, the price isn't that much different between black market and buying it through one of these stores.
Is it expensive up there? Like CBD oil, is it expensive?
It's about $80 or so, which will last about a month.
Yeah. It's expensive.
So, not that I'm lucky in this scenario, but my cousin, she's had cancer for the last number of years, and she is a very active, both recreation and medicinal cannabis user, both marijuana. She doesn't take much CBD, but through her guy in British Columbia, he did make a batch of CBD pure oil for me, and I just mix it with coconut oil and take it sublingually under the tongue.
Yeah.
And that's how I was doing it. And I didn't receive any high from it, no matter what my mother-in-law says.
Right. No matter how hard I tried.
Yeah, exactly. So it's still something that's there. And once, inventory comes back, then we can look at it again. And when I see my neurologist in June of this year, I'll talk to him again about it now. He'll have more information, no doubt.
Yeah.
I don't know if I need a prescription to get it covered.
That's what I was going to ask.
I don't know.
Yeah. Because if it's legal everywhere, what do you need a script for? But as you just said, maybe it's to get the cost covered. That's covered. So interesting. Okay. Well, we're pretty similar down here, except everywhere is not legal. And it's just weird here because some states it is, but federally it's not. And it's just weird. There's a lot of, I'm going to look this way now and you can go over there and do that. But I will say.
You can, and I can say, even out and about with the kids and stuff like that, you can smell it.
Yeah.
People are openly smoking it.
Right. Yeah. Well, and they are in DC too, which is, I don't know. I just get tickled when I go there. People are just smoking a J out in the, and I'm like, amen, brother. That's the way it should be. Like, whatever. Don't even get me started. So I'm asking everybody this last question, and thank you so much for being so patient because I know we have gabbed on and on, but you're so darn.
I don't mind.
If you could change anything about diagnosis and treatment of MS in your country, what would it be? And P.S. You can say nothing too. You can say nothing.
No.
Right. Whatever.
No.
Okay.
So right now, as I alluded to earlier, I'm on Copaxone. I was on the 20 milligram syringes. Which I were taken every day through injection. But given I had shingles across my back back when I had my ostomy surgery in 2003. Obviously, I have scarring from the pyoderma. So you can only inject yourself in so many spots that aren't going to get scarred up.
Yeah.
So
you don't have many spots left, is what you're saying.
No, I don't.
Right.
No, I don't. Because I can't use my back.
Right.
There's only limited sections I can use on my back. I cannot use my abdomen because I have the ostomy pouch.
Gosh, darn.
So, speaking with my neurologist, he said, there is a 40 milligram syringe that's taken 3 times a week, but it's not yet covered through Alberta Health. So, which is the provincial healthcare system. So I would have to pay for it, or would employer benefits pay for it? Because it's not approved through Alberta Health, the employer benefits do not cover it. So he reached out to the drug company, and the drug company, until it is footed by the province and through, in turn, the employer benefits, they are covering the full cost of my Copaxone.
Oh, nice.
And they've been doing that for almost 2 years now.
Well, here's to patient assistance programs. Cheers.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah,
thank God. I could never have afforded all the drugs I've been on in the course of 11 years without it, for sure.
No.
Okay. So what is it that you would change about it then? That
there are a lot of treatments available, but not all of them are yet available in Canada.
Yeah.
We've got Ocrevus. There's the oral therapies that are just in the last year becoming more available. My neurologist and I, when I saw him last year, were kind of looking up in the air like, shit, what are we going to do if, the Copaxone, because I had a relapse last year, I had this thing happen about 2 months ago. So what are my next treatment options? I'm not a candidate for oral treatments because I don't know, nor is he, and there's no research for people with ileostomies on what is absorbed.
Right.
Because most of that absorption of the treatments and therapies is done through the colon. I don't have one.
Right. So that's not
not going to work.
No.
I built up antibodies to Rebif, so that kills a few of those beta serons. Or John, that name just jumped out of my head, but interferons. Yeah. And then obviously with what happened with Tysabri, how does that impact Ocrevus?
Right.
Because the research I've done when it comes to PML with Ocrevus. So there's a lot of unknowns, but there are other therapies that are not yet cleared by Health Canada.
Gotcha.
To actually be implemented up here. So kind of streamlining that, given that there is such a population per capita in Canada
Yeah.
for people with MS, you would think
Right.
that we would be kind of first out of the gate
At the forefront.
with a lot of these.
Yeah.
But that's not really
Wow.
where it's at. And
That's
wait
true.
times for MRIs, I think it's an issue everywhere. Yes, we don't pay for MRIs and things like that, you know, as long as it's physician requested. If I wanted to go and get an MRI just to see what's going on up there, obviously I would have to pay out of pocket for it.
Yeah.
But if a neurologist wants to see what's going on and puts it through, then I don't pay for it. But I'm kind of then, it's up to the grace of God of when do I get in to get one.
Like how long
in the
typically?
In the past, well, usually I just get a letter in the mail that you've been booked, your MRI will be, and it's usually like 2 months out, like the Optimus program.
Wow.
But when they needed an MRI urgently, or semi-urgently, I would say, I was actually admitted into the hospital overnight, so that I was in the hospital for the first availability of the machine. And I was wheeled down at like 2:30 in the morning to have an MRI from my room because it was available.
Right.
I've had MRIs as late as midnight, and that's driving from my house to the South Calgary campus to get an MRI, which is, you know, an hour's drive and an hour's drive home, you know, to get this MRI at, you know, midnight.
Right.
So, I mean, it's pretty much the same everywhere. But again, if I wanted to just see what's going on, or if my neurologist said, I don't want to get an MRI, but I felt very deeply that I want one, I would have to pay out of pocket. And I know people in Calgary who have done that just because they're curious.
Yeah.
And,
do you have any idea how much that was, or how much it is out of pocket?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't want to just throw out a random number. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I happen to know what it is here, which is a staggering number, but it's like 5,000, 5,400 at a hospital. And then I go to an MRI CT center, so it's literally half of that cost, which is crazy, you know, and there's no transparency in cost sharing here. I asked and asked and asked, and people looked at me like they had no idea what I was talking about. I'm like, well, who does the bill? Because somebody knows how much this shit's costing. You don't know how much it is right now when I'm booking it, but I'll in about a week have a bill. So somewhere along the lines, this exists, but they don't. They don't. Whatever. Don't get me started. So if this has just been so interesting. You're really such an interesting person, and I so appreciate you being so forthcoming and willing to share with everybody everything that you've gone through and how you've dealt with everything. And first of all, let me just say, your wife is a saint, which I think you alluded to earlier.
Yes, she is.
She sounds amazing. And you're pretty amazing yourself. And thank you again for sharing with us all the information about what you've gone through and what it's like to get diagnosed and treated and all in Canada. And I've held off on doing this, but I can't do it anymore. It's almost killed me to do this, so I just have to do it. Okay, ready? Oh, Canada. I just have to. Like, every time I say Canada, it just kills me to do that. I have to do it. If people want to learn more about you, reach out to you, where can they find you?
I did start a blog in 2017, just through circumstance and family life and things like that. It's been a bit spotty the last few months, but the blog is called Living Your Life Through Time, .wordpress.com. There's social media links in there as well to get in contact with me. So far as for my Facebook, with their new conditions with Facebook, they don't any longer connect. So to find me on Facebook, it's facebook.com/Dave.head.946 is the direct link to my Facebook page.
Okay.
But through Living Your Life Through Time.wordpress.com does have my links to my Twitter and my Instagram included at the bottom of my page.
And as with every single episode, I want to let the audience know all of these things are in the show notes. So just go to FUMSnow.com/podcast. and all of the podcast, it's like blog posts with each one of the podcasts on there. And in fact, if you want to talk about this episode or any other episode, that's the best way to do it. Go right there and you can leave comments, questions, all of those things. And all the show notes for each one of the episodes are there, including how to find our guests, any kind of contact information like for Dave. So thanks again for doing this. And as you know, we here in the FUMS Nation speak to this stupid disease as it deserves, and we tell it FUMS every day. Would you please lead the charge with middle finger extended, of course, on 3. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
1,
2,
3.
FUMS.
Perfect. Love it. I think you've said that before.
I think I have a few times.
Sounds like you've been practiced. Well, thanks again, Dave. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. You as well.
Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you listening to the FUMS podcast show. Be sure to subscribe to it so you won't miss an episode. You can do that right on the website at fumsnow.com. While you're there, sign up for the free email list so you'll be among the first to know of any new findings in MS research, new therapies and products, as well as any blog posts and podcast episodes I release. Want to chat with others in the FUMS community? Join us on Facebook at FUMS Now. Thanks again, and don't forget to talk to the stupid disease as it deserves. Tell it FUMS every day.